In this second video of our GitHub video series, today we will be directly jumping into Git and GitHub. In the last video, we have discussed about the version control system. We have talked about why we need version control system with a help of example. Right? So if you didn't watch that video still, I am keeping the link to that video in I button. I request you to watch that video before this so you will be getting better understanding. Right? Let's jump into GitHub. Now we know what is Git, right? Git is a version control system which help us to manage all the changes happening to a file. It will store each changes as a state in its database, and at any point of time we can restore any specific state of a file. Git will be running locally of each of your system. I mean, Git is actually running locally on each of your team members' system. So whenever you make changes, Git will be tracking that change and Git will be creating a new state of a file. But in this scenario, let's take an example. You have an important file and you have made some important changes to that file, and you are keeping that file in your local system. But your teammates in this case still have the old file. Whatever update you have made, they didn't get still because they are using the old file still. So the problem here is we need a centralized place to store all the file which is backed by Git, and that's how every team members will able to get the latest code. But the problem here it is we cannot use simply a centralized location, because that centralized location should able to understand the Git. And if we are using a centralized location like a Dropbox or OneDrive, the problem here is when as I discussed in the last video, when multiple people tries to make some changes simultaneously, it makes trouble, right? It makes trouble. So we cannot use a normal Dropbox OneDrive. That's why we need GitHub. So basically, GitHub is we can consider as a file sharing or a code sharing platform for collaboration. Of course, but it's way more than that. But we can think like that. So GitHub is a web-based Git version control repo hosting service. We are hosting our repository in a centralized location, and to that repository we can upload our files. If you don't know what is a repository, don't worry, we will come to that. Okay, so whenever we make changes or whenever we do something on a file, after making the changes we will upload back to the GitHub, and all of your team members will refer the code in the GitHub. That will be the latest code or that will be the latest file. So far we discussed about version control system, Git and GitHub. So Git will help us to track each changes happening to a file. It will add a history whenever there is a change is happening, or it will add a state whenever there is a change is happening to a file. Whereas a GitHub is a platform for us to store all the files which is backed by Git in a centralized place, so that all of your team members will have access to the latest code, and it provides a lot of options for the collaboration. So GitHub is basically a centralized place where we can store our Git repository. Okay, and of course GitHub has a Git instance running in the backend. That's how GitHub is able to understand the Git files. Okay, now before we're going further, I just need to show one thing about Git bash, right? Sorry, yeah, Git bash. So Git bash is actually an application which will help us to get a command line access to the Git. For example, we are using Windows. If we are using Windows operating system, to get command line access to Git, we can use this application Git bash, and I will show how to download that, and we can use all the Git command there. Now let's discuss what is the difference between Git and GitHub. Usually, most of people think GitHub and Git are the same, but it's not, right? We already see that it's not the same. These are two different things, right? Git is a version control system which will help us to track all the changes happening to a file, which will add a new state whenever there is a change happening to a file. GitHub again is a platform where we can store our Git files, and it's a centralized location. GitHub is a centralized location where we can store all of our Git backed files. If we take one example, consider we have a repository in GitHub, and we have a same repository in my local machine, local system as well. And I am making some changes to the file, right? I'm making some changes to one of the file. So when I make the changes to a file, since I have a Git running in my laptop, when I make some changes, it tracks that change happened to that file. It adds a new state of the file, right? It adds a new state. And after making the change, right? After making the change, I'm uploading back the file to GitHub. So anyone who is like want to work with that file from my team, they can just take that file from the GitHub, so that they're always working on the latest code. They will not work on a past code, right? The previous code. So they want to make sure they always work in the latest code, so they can always get the code from the GitHub, or any file code or any file from the GitHub. So I hope you understand the difference, right? Git is usually run locally on your laptop, on your system, or all the team member system. And we make changes, Git will track that change. And GitHub is a place where we store all our Git file centrally. I mean, at a centralized location. So GitHub is that centralized location for us. So that's how we make sure all have the latest code. That's how we collaborate with our team members. That another feature GitHub provides a lot of collaboration options. We will come to that. Okay, so I hope you understand the difference between Git and GitHub. If you see this picture, it will be more clear. See, we have like all the individual system has running with the Git. So whenever we make some changes, I make some changes here, right, in my laptop. Imagine I make some changes here, and if I didn't upload to GitHub, I'll just keep here. Then my teammate, when my teammate access the code from GitHub, he has the old code, right? Whatever change I have made, I didn't upload to GitHub still. So then he has to work on the old code. Imagine I fixed a bug, and he don't know about that, and even he is also working on that. It's a waste of effort, right? So that's why we need GitHub. Once I make some changes, I upload back to GitHub, then the other team members will always have the latest code to work. Now let's see what is a repository. Okay, repository, you can think like a directory, right? Repository is nothing but it's just like a directory where we are storing the files, right? In directory we usually store we in directory we have all the files. Similarly, in repository we have all the files. Okay, so we can have either a repository in your laptop, in your local machine, or we can have a repository in your in the GitHub or any other centralized location. Okay, so the repository in your laptop is called local repository, and the repository in GitHub is called the remote repository. And repository is nothing but just like a directory where we store all the files. If you want to upload any file to GitHub, you must have a repository in the GitHub. Without repository, you cannot upload any file. So repository is a block. That is a base block of a GitHub. You are uploading all of the file to a repository or a multiple repository. Okay, so to start with the GitHub, first step we have to do is to create a repository in the GitHub. But before that, let me ask this: how many of you have a GitHub account already? A GitHub account already? If not, don't worry. GitHub is completely free. We can just go to github.com and create an account. Right? It's completely free. Go to github.com and you can sign up here, right? You can sign up here. Just a matter of it takes hardly 1 minute. You can sign up, and after that you can sign in. Okay, once you sign in, you will be seeing this page. Okay, before I introduce anything else, I will ask you to download one more application, which is Git Bash. Okay, which will be needed to show the command line command line interaction with the Git. So you need to download Git Bash. You can just go to this website gitscm.com/downloads and you can download the Git bash. Okay, and once you downloaded, you can install it and it will be like this. This is the Git bash. It will be like this command line interface. You will be seeing a like this command line interface. I will come to that. Now let's go back to GitHub, right? So this will be the window you will be seeing once you sign in. This is the home button. Wherever you whichever page you were in, if you click this one, you will back to this page. And here, right, under repository, you see a green button, new. Click on new. That's how we create a new repository. So I am naming my repository as my project. Okay, my project. And description is option. I just put the same name as my project repository name. And either we can make this repository public or private. Public means whoever have this repository link, they will be able to access the our repository, right? Private means it's mostly used by enterprises, companies to secure their application or secure their file. So in that case, if we choose private, we can decide who can access our repository, who can access our file. Okay, for now I will keep this as a public because we are doing this for a learning purpose. We can keep this as a public. Now add me a read file. What is a readme file? Okay, add a readme file. A readme file, a readme.md file is nothing but it's a file where we write about this repository. In this file, we can write about this repository, like what is this repository, what is the content of this repository, all those things we can specify in this readme file. Okay, I will show you that. Now I click the add a readme file and create a repository. Okay, now you see this, we have a by default we are in this repository. Okay, now I am in my project repository. Let me show that. I will go back to home. Okay, in my repository list I have my project which I have created right now. Okay, and because I checked readme, right, I have a readme file by default. I didn't add this file, right? This was created by default. Okay, if I open this, what is here? It has just description. What we can add here, anything, like we can specify here about this repository. What is this repository? What are the content we have in this repository? All those things we can specify here, so that when anyone visit this repository, they will be able to see all the details of this repo. Okay, for example, for now, let me write like my project. Okay, this repo is for learning purpose. Okay, you can click preview, you see there, and then click on commit changes. Okay, click on commit changes. That's it. So once you've done that, see, you are in the main page. Now go back. Let's go back to our repository page. If you want to go back to repository page, just click on here. Okay, now we are in the repository page, and you see this, our readme file dot updated. And whoever comes to this repository, right, whoever comes to this repository, first they will see this page here in the home page of repository. They will be seeing this readme.md file, so that they will be able to understand what is this repo about, what type of file having in this repo. All these details we can specify here. That is readme.md file. Whatever we specify in the md extension, it will be showing in the home page. Okay, that's what readme.md. Okay, that's how we created a repository in the GitHub. Now let's see how can we create repository in a Git repository in our local machine, in my laptop. Now I am in a Git bash. Okay, right now I am in a D directory. Okay, I'm in a D directory. Now first thing I will do, I will make, either you can create a directory using mkdir and directory name. Okay, or you can simply go to D, come here, new folder, I'll just name as my project. Okay, once we did that, cd my project, enter into the newly created directory. Okay, after that we just, okay, let me clear this. Okay, hope you can see this. Now type git init. Okay, this is the command to initialize this normal directory into as a git repository. Once we issue this command, this will be a git directory. Right now git my project, right, which one I have created here, is a normal folder, it's a normal directory. So if you want to convert this as a git directory, we just need to enter into this directory and issue the command git init. Right, now our directory, our repository is initialized, right? Initialized empty git repository. Okay, now we will able to issue various commands here because this is a git repository now. Okay, so you see here, right, once we change it, once we initialized our repository, there is some changes happened here. You see this, there is something appended here like master. I will come to that, what is it, what is this, but yeah, there is some changes happen. So this normal directory is converted into a git repository. So I hope you're following, right? We show we saw how can we create a repository in the GitHub, and we have seen how can we create a repository in our local system. I mean local repository. All right. So in today's video, we have discussed about GitHub, and repository, and we have seen how to create a repository in GitHub, as well as how can we create a repository using Git Bash. Right? I hope you have followed so far. If you have any question, please feel free to ask in the comment section. I will try my best to answer it. Also, I will keep my Telegram group link in the description. I request everyone to join there so that we can discuss and learn together. With that being said, I wish you all the best for your learning. Keep learning and keep motivated. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you in next video.